Most of the world's major civilizations were concentrated in the northern hemisphere, which has a direct relationship with geography and climate. This is because productivity determines population size, and population size, in turn, heavily influences everything else. If we look at the entire northern hemisphere, we can see that under the productivity levels of agricultural civilizations, there were very few places capable of sustaining a population of around 80 million people and maintaining stable output. Aside from China, you won't find many places that could meet this criterion. Hello, I'm Jeffrey, and welcome to Just Spit Out as today, March 17th, 2025. I'd like to talk about why China did not colonize Australia. Some might ask, given that ancient China's maritime technology was ahead of the world, why didn't it venture out to colonize other lands? I believe the primary reason lies in the fact that the land China occupied was simply too good. The advantages of this land were verified and reaffirmed through countless generations, and the conclusion drawn was that it was enough to just protect this land. Looking at historical population peaks in China, we can see that even at its peak during the Qing dynasty, China had only about 400 million people, which is just a fraction of today's population. In most other periods, even during times of prosperity, China's population peaked at around 80 million. Here are the population peaks during various dynasties in China's history. Pre-Qin period, Shang dynasty, about 7 to 8 million. End of Shang dynasty and Western Zhou dynasty, about 27 to 30 million. Late spring and autumn period to early warring states, Qin dynasty, about 25 million. End of Qin dynasty and through the Han to Sui Tang, Western Han, about 59.59 million. Year 02 AD, Eastern Han, about 65 million. Year 157 AD, Three Kingdoms, about 23 million. Sui dynasty, about 46 million. Tang dynasty, about 90 million in 609 AD. Northern Song dynasty, about 114 million. Southern Song dynasty, about 85 million. Yuan dynasty, about 90 million. Ming dynasty, official census, about 60 million. Actual estimates reached 200 million. Qing dynasty, about 430 million in 1850. At that time, within China's territorial boundaries, even under the productivity levels of agricultural civilizations, the output was sufficient to support the population. Given this, honestly, who would be motivated to go conquer barren lands and expand their territory? Throughout history, many Chinese people ventured to the South Seas, but most of them did so because they had no other option. As long as there was a way to survive, they didn't want to leave their homeland. Additionally, China's territory was already large enough for the population at the time, whereas Europe faced a very different situation. In Europe, due to the small size of many countries and the lack of natural geographic barriers, frequent wars between European nations destroyed accumulated wealth, leaving them no choice but to venture out through maritime exploration to colonize and rob wealth from the New World. The so-called Age of Discovery was essentially about robbing gold and silver from the Americas to fuel the birth of industrial civilization. China, however, had a geographically advantageous position that made it unnecessary for the Chinese to pursue colonization. Take China's Anxia province, Hainan's Sanya, as an example. Even though the flight prices surge during holidays and hotels become expensive, it's a popular vacation destination today. However, in ancient times, it was a place no one wanted to go, a place for exiled officials. This shows that, in the eyes of ancient Chinese people, anything outside of China's land was considered a barren, uncivilized place. The north was cold and inhospitable, while the south was hot and mountainous. In the eyes of ancient Chinese people, they regarded the Jiangnan region as the ideal place. Anything outside of Jiangnan was viewed as a wild land. If they didn't even consider Sanya worthy, what makes you think they would have colonized Australia? Australia is filled with vast deserts, and its northern part is very dry with little rain. The coastal areas are subject to strong winds, and only the southeastern part is somewhat livable. Ancient Chinese people favored land suitable for farming, not coastal areas. Would such a barren, remote place like Australia have appealed to the aesthetic values of China's ancestors? In fact, as we all know, according to ancient texts like the Asterisk Classic of Mountains and Seas, Asterisk, the ancient Chinese recorded nearly every corner of the earth. But in the end, when comparing these regions, it's clear that the land occupied by China today is the best place on earth, at least in the eyes of ancient people. In the era of agricultural civilizations, it was the land with the most favorable conditions. Many people believe that the United States is a great place, but in fact, its major mountain ranges run north to south, which allows cold air from the Arctic to travel through Canada and push down into America, sometimes reaching as far as Florida. China is different, with the Kinlim Mountains acting as a barrier, providing a more temperate climate with distinct seasons. This is why, unlike in America, China doesn't experience the same constant tornadoes, and there aren't as many devastating floods like those caused by the Mississippi River. These two factors were detrimental to agricultural production during the agricultural civilization era. In that era, the majority of human civilization flourished on the Eurasian continent, while North America lacked the emergence of a powerful agricultural civilization. This was largely due to its geographical environment. In other words, the geographical environment of North America wasn't suitable for the agricultural civilization's productivity levels. Most major civilizations around the world were located in the Northern Hemisphere, which is directly related to geography and climate. Productivity determines population size, which in turn influences everything else. Looking across the Northern Hemisphere, under the productivity levels of agricultural civilizations, few places were capable of sustaining a population of around 80 million people while maintaining stable output. Besides China, there weren't many regions where this was possible. China led human civilization for thousands of years during the agricultural civilization era, and there is a reason for that. Geography played an important role. Back then, China was unwilling to engage in trade with smaller states, let alone colonize them. Of course, things are different now. Great powers are preparing to stake their claims, and China, being a great power itself, is also seizing opportunities to assert its influence. That is all for this episode. Appreciate your listening. Love you guys. I'm Jeffrey. This is Just Spit Out. Just hit the subscription button down below for more unique observations. I will see you guys next time.